President-elect Donald Trump signaled Tuesday that he would put a 25% tariff on all imports from Canada, Mexico, and 10% on China, stoking fears that a trade war could be upon us. Trump blames his tariff threat on the influx of undocumented migrants and fentanyl coming through the borders. He maintains imposing import taxes will lead to more factory jobs, shrink the deficit, lower food prices, and allow government to subsidize childcare. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau weighed in on Tuesday. Here he is talking to reporters.
Good call with Donald Trump last night again. We obviously talked about laying out the facts, talking about how the intense and effective connections between our two countries flow back and forth. We talked about some of the challenges that we can work on together. It was a good call. This is something that we can do. Laying out the facts, moving forward in constructive ways. This is a relationship that we know takes a certain amount of working on, and that's what we'll do. One of the really important things is that we be all pulling together on this. The Team Canada approach is what works. That's where, putting aside partisanship, that's where I reached out immediately to Doug Ford to agree with him that we would have a First Ministers meeting this week to talk about the United States, talked with François Legault and some other premiers as well. There's work to do, but we know how to do it.
Economists are sceptical as Trump's tariffs could upend the 2018 USMCA free trade deal that his administration helped craft. Plus, they say relying on tariffs is an inefficient way for governments to raise money. Tariffs may be geared in other directions, but critics warn against the unintended effects on US consumers. Grocery bills could rise as the price of produce would go up. Overall, when combined, Canada and Mexico make up 52.6% of agricultural imports that come into the United States, 69.5% of oil and gas, and 49.7% of transportation equipment. Speaking in a press conference Tuesday, newly minted Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum vowed to stop migrant caravans from reaching the US border. On the issue of drugs, she contended that that's a US problem to deal with. And in response to Trump's threat of tariffs, Sheinbaum suggested that Mexico could retaliate with tariffs of its own.
Social media users reacted. Economist Douglas Boneparth posted, quote, "I'm going to buy a whole bunch of avocados and tequila before Trump tariffs Mexico, flip them, and make myself an easy 25% return." Liberal X account Art Candy posted, quote, "Things are about to get a lot more expensive. Bravo, mouth breathers." And Batya Angar Sargan said, "Trump hitting the ground running with a promise of 25% blanket tariff on Mexico and Canada for their failure to enforce the border on their side and a 10% tariff on China over fentanyl. Absolutely epic stuff. This is what Americans elected him to do, and it's still just November." So this is very interesting. I think most people should be able to agree that ideally we don't want to have tariffs. It is pretty incontrovertible that it raises the price of goods at a time where that is the number one concern of all Americans, the high price of what they pay for groceries, what they pay for tangible products. This is going to make things more expensive across the board also because, if component resources become more expensive for firms that manufacture them or manufacture things that need those components, they just raise the price and pass that on to you, the consumer. So we definitely don't want to have tariffs. I think what people in Trump world who are defending this approach the most honestly, who do know that, I saw commentary from the incoming Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, on this. The point is to induce different behavior from these other countries, from Mexico, Canada, and China. We're not really going to get different behavior from China, but maybe from Mexico and Canada. And so it's being used as a diplomatic tool, not that we're actually going to do them. Of course, if they believe we would never actually do them, then it doesn't really work as a diplomatic tool. Right. But what's your take?
So my take is that this is already, having immediate effects in that we saw instantly on the stock market the big automakers, to your point about component parts, Ford, GM, and what used to be Chrysler and is now Stellantis, falling quite sharply immediately these tariffs were announced or proposed by Trump. And that's a byproduct of the fact that if you put tariffs on Mexico in particular, and Canada to a degree, where they get a lot of their car parts and so forth, it would drive up their prices. And there has been research done by a group called Wolf Research that suggests that a 25% tariff on those nations would raise the average car price for Americans by $3,000. Now, that is not a good thing. It looks like we've got tariffs on our lights, because I think some just went out there. But in any
They're
event,
motion censoring.
yeah, exactly. There's something happening. People are... Anyway, beyond all of that, the problem is that there is an immediate negative impact, even if this is just a threat. And as you point out, if it is just a threat and is perceived as just a threat, it doesn't actually work, because people don't think there will be follow-through.
Right.
The threat relies upon the possibility that there will be follow-through. And if there is follow-through, as I think you and I both agree, that would have detrimental effects on American consumers and spur inflation.
Right, and this is not some liberal criticism of Trump. Being suspicious of tariffs and pro-markets has been a Republican position for a long time. I was listening to Rand Paul talking about it on CBS over the weekend, and he's saying that, yes, we don't want to have tariffs. He's, in fact, tried to put forth legislation to maybe remind the president that it is Congress's job to make law and the president to carry it out. And so the declaration of tariffs should not be done by executive fiat anyway. It should be done by Congress.
Although he does have the power to do it, I believe, for national security.
This would restore it to Congress. Well, yeah. Oh, we have the power to do everything for national security.
Right, I know. No, I mean, I'm not defending it. I think it's skeptical of it.
Yes.
But anyway, yeah.
Yes. So ideally, we don't want to have them. We don't want to make things more expensive. We don't want to make it inefficient to produce goods, to provide services. And then if we tariff them and they tariff us, so, this is just like blowing up bridges or deciding to make things more expensive for no reason, or creating work. It creates some category of jobs or extra work for some people, which is good. But we're not all workers in one specific field. We're all consumers in a large economy. So you don't want to require that, to build a house, you have to you have to jog in circle for 5 miles before you do it. That would create more work, but it would just make the price of everything more expensive. It just creates inefficiency for no reason. Right. So we don't want to do this. So I'm hoping this can be used just as a negotiating tactic and not actually something that gets imposed. I
wonder if the concept that you just described was sufficiently covered by the media during the campaign. We often criticize the quote-unquote mainstream media from other perspectives here, but the tariffs issue, there seems such widespread agreement that tariffs are fundamentally a bad idea. And yes, I know Trump imposed some limited tariffs in his first term, and I know that Biden didn't get rid of them all.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
But this is not what Trump is talking here about: 25% on all goods from Canada and Mexico, and adding 10% to already existing tariffs.
Right.
So, I mean, that from China. So that is, I think, very problematic, regardless of one's ideological position.
I mean, I agree with you, but I think the Canada and Mexico ones seem much more likely to be just negotiating tactics and not going to be implemented. And with the China one, which might actually go into effect because we're not going to get China to do anything differently, is more just kind of a continuation and in line with what Biden already did on this front. That is a shame from my political vantage point, but there has been much more continuity on this aspect of policy than just about anything else between Trump to Biden and now to Trump again. I think Democrats, it would be difficult, I mean, you can disagree with me if you want. I think it would be hard for them to run on, or would have been hard for Kamala Harris to run on, no, tariffs are bad, we're totally against them, when their administration was for that. I mean, that could have been a way she distinguished herself from Biden if, given that she said, you know what, that I would have agreed. That would have appealed to me as a swing voter. Yeah. If she said, yeah, the tariffs that Biden did are economically destructive, and we know those raise the price of things, and that was a mistake, and I don't want to do them, and we're going to have less tariffs. And under Trump, you will have tariffs, and you will pay more in prices. That would have been an appealing message.
I think what Democrats would argue is there's a difference between targeted tariffs, which do, in fact, still have an effect, and there's all sorts of issues where China retaliated, and did that hurt, soybean farmers in Iowa. But in any event, there's a difference between targeted tariffs and blanket tariffs, which tend to have counterproductive impacts on the overall economy.
Well, I know I'm stocking up on tequila just because that's what I do every weekend. Lots more to come on Rising soon. Please pay attention. I'll be delivering speeches with the cadence of Kamala Harris soon enough. If we keep this up, stay tuned.